Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's Business Studies revision lesson. My name is Simpio Mukwena. This lesson is proudly brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education. Grade 12 learners, I'll be doing revision with you for paper 1. We have our WhatsApp line where you can send your question on WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp number is 064788913. Our WhatsApp line is 064-748-8913. Right, grade 12, we will be running examination. Very soon you will be writing your examination. On the 28th of October, you will be starting with your paper 1. I should think where you are fully prepared for paper 1. So today we are going to do revision on paper 1. Now it is important that when we start with this lesson, we have our learning objectives. What is that we want to achieve with our lesson? These learning objectives are taken from the page 9 of your examination guideline. Right. Let's take a look at our learning objectives. First and foremost, you must be able to outline, if not outline, discuss the strategic management process, because our lesson is based on business strategies. Now, let's take a look at another learning objectives. You must be able to name, if not name, you must be able to identify Potter's 5 forces from a given scenario or statement, which means learners, examiners may ask you on Potter's 5 forces model. They might give you a scenario, they might give you a statement, they might give you a direct question. You will see as we go on how will you be assessed on business strategies. Right, you may be required to explain. If not explain, you may be required to advise businesses on how they could apply Potter's 5 forces model to do what? To analyze their position in the market. Right. If not that, you may also be required to name, if not name, apply the personal analysis factors from a given scenario or statement. Let us go on with other learning objectives. Right. You may also be required to explain how the personal factors pose a challenge to a business. So, learners, these are the learning outcomes that you must keep in mind, so that as we go deeper with our lesson, you are driven by this learning outcome, so that when we are done with our lesson at the end of the day, these are the things that we need to achieve. This will also help you when you study at home. You must have an objective. Why are you studying that particular content? And what is the objective? That learning objective, it comes from your page 9 of your examination guideline under the column that says learners must be able to. Let's go on. Furthermore, you must be able to recommend ways in which business can deal with the challenges that are posed by personal factors. Remember, with bullet 2, I said you explain the personal factors, how they pose a challenge to a business. Then you need to recommend now ways in which business can deal with those challenges. You don't just leave challenges there. You recommend ways in which business can deal with the challenges posed by personal factors. Then let's take other objectives. Then you must be able to explain, if not explain, you must be able to discuss the following business strategies: integration strategies, intensive strategies, diversification strategies, and defensive strategies. Now, it's important that you look at the action verb that is associated to a particular content. Now let's go on. Then take it further. With your business strategies, you don't leave it at describing, explaining only. You must be able to outline, explain, and discuss advantages of intensive and diversification strategies. So as you are busy studying those strategies, you must be able to explain what are the advantages of intensive strategies and what are the advantages of diversification strategies. And lastly, candidates, you must be able to outline, explain, if not, recommend or advise business on the steps in strategy evaluation. Those are the learning objectives of our lesson for today. So, as we go on with the lesson, by the end of the lesson, you must be able to address these learning objectives as I have indicated. Now we're going to start with the strategic management process. But then it's important that before we actually start with the strategic management process, we understand the structure of our question paper. How is our paper 1 going to look like? Although today we are doing business strategies, that does not mean paper 1 has only business strategies. I'm going to take you through to all the main topics for paper 1 and the subtopics for paper 1. Now, candidates, let's take a look at the structure of the question paper. This is how our question paper is going to look like. Our question paper has 3 sections. We have section A, which is compulsory. Now, in section A, you have questions that are coming from the 2 main topics for your paper 1. That is business environment and business operations. So those are the 2 main topics that you must prepare in order to answer your paper 1. But then candidates, we will break it further to then know what are the subtopics of business environment and what are the subtopics of your business operation. Now your section 1, it has a multiple choice for 10 marks. Now those multiple choice questions are coming from the 5 subtopics of your paper 1. I will show you those 5 subtopics. Then you have choose the correct weight, which comes for 10 marks. Then you have your matching items for 10 marks, which means candidates for section A, you have 30 marks, which we are going to get that 30 marks. It is important that you study all your subtopics. Now let's get to section B, candidates. Now in section B, you have questions. You have 3 questions. Out of the 3 questions, you must choose 2 questions. Can I warn you? It is important that when you choose a question, you are sure that the question that I'm choosing, I will get 40 marks out of that question. Take, for instance, you want to choose question 2. So you must make a point that you shall have studied business environment, the 3 subtopics of business environment. When you want to choose question 3, then you'll be answering question coming from which main topic? Coming from business operation with each 2 subtopics, which I will show them as we go on. Then you have your question 4, which is a miscellaneous question. Then that question 4, you have 20 marks questions coming from business environment, and then you have another 20 marks questions coming from business operation. Then we have our last section in the question paper, which is our section C. This is the question that you like the most, where you'll be getting your 40 marks. Now your section C, it has 2 questions. That is question 5 and question 6. Now your question 5 are the questions coming from your main topic being what? Business environment. Then you have your question 6, which it has questions coming from which main topics? Business operation. Now let's take it further, candidates. Now let's look at our main topics for paper 1, that is business environment and business operations. So when you look at this main topic, you may think it is easy. Of course it is easy. Now let's look at the subtopics for business environment and the subtopics for business operation. Right. Now the first subtopic for business environment is your legislation on businesses, which was done in term 1. Then you also have business strategies, which was also done in term 1. So our focus for this revision today is on business strategies. Then you also have your business sectors and their environment. Now towards the end of the lesson, we will touch on business sectors and their environments, which were done in term 2. Now let's get to our main topic, that is business operation, which is divided into human resource function, which was done in term 1, and then quality of performance, which was done in term 2. Now, when you look at this subtopic, candidate, what is it saying to you? This simply says, for you to prepare for paper 1, you must have 5 sets of notes. You must have your notes on legislations, you must have your notes on business strategies, you must have your notes on business sectors. Now, all those, they make what? They are subtopics of the business environment, which will help you to answer question 2 and question 4, which is your miscellaneous, as well as question 5. Then let's get to question 6 and question 3, which is your business operations. Now, what are the subtopics of the business operation? It's your human resource functions and quality of performance. Now, candidates, before I go on, I need to warn you to say it is important. Where you are seated in your classroom, I can see you. Some of you, they don't have complete notes. Please make a point that after this lesson, if there is a chapter that you are missing, you go to your teacher. You ask your teacher for that chapter and say, Mener or ma'am, I don't have notes on business strategies. Your teacher is going to give you those notes free of charge. You don't have to stress and you don't have to be afraid. Right? Now, these are just tips for your subtopics. To say, when you study legislation, if legislations are asked in section A, section B, and section C, you may get a minimum of 50 marks. Then if business strategies are asked, of course they will be asked in section A, section B, and section C, you may get a minimum of 50 marks. This is just to show you how simple is business studies and how simple it is to pass business studies. Now, candidates, I just want to warn you to say, in your preparation, make a point that you practice a minimum of 3 essays per topic. Now, you can use your past papers dating from 2017 up to 2021, the senior certificate and the national senior certificate, which was written recently. So please make a point that you have that question paper. Now, we are doing business strategies like I have indicated. We have our business, Simphiwe Manufacturers. It's a business that is popular, known for designing bags. Now, Simphiwe Manufacturers, it is facing a problem. There is a decline in sales. So therefore, the management decided to sit down and do a strategic management process. Remember, with your strategic management process, you have option 1, and option 2. Now, candidates, it's your choice. If you like option 1, you can use option 1. If you like option 2, you can use option 2. Remember the learning objective about the strategic management process, the action verb that can be used to assess strategic management process. If I may ask, which action verb will it be? It could be outline, it could be describe, it could be discuss. So please make a point that when you sit for your examination, you are able to outline, discuss, describe what? The strategic management process. Now, let us look at the strategic management process together. Now, when you discuss the strategic management process, remember this strategic management process is taken from your notes. Now, the first thing you need to have a clear vision and measurable objectives in place. We have seen that as a business, there is a decline in sale. Now, we have sat down and decided to do a strategic management process wherein we want to increase our profit in the next 6 months by 5%. You can see that our objectives is realistic and it is measurable. We are not saying we want to increase profit, but then we are stating by saying by 5% and when? In the next 6 months. Right, then we identify opportunities because we are operating in an environment. We are operating in the trade business environment, in your micro environment, in your macro environment, and then in your market environment. That we identify opportunities, weaknesses, strength. How? By conducting environmental scanning, which is also known as situational analysis. Now, candidates, let me advise you. When you write, either we can use situational analysis. If you find environmental scanning, you can use environmental scanning. You can then say identify opportunities, weaknesses, strengths, and that by conducting situational analysis. Now, what are you going to use when you do your environmental scanning, when you do your situational analysis? That's where now we bring in the 3 business industrial analysis tools, which are your what? Your POTAS 5, your pestle analysis, and your SWOT analysis. Remember, as a business, when we use SWOT analysis, we are analyzing the internal environment as well as the external environment. Now, as a business, we look at our strength, we look at our weaknesses. We also look at what are the opportunities in this environment for us to grow, and then what are the threats in this environment. Right, like I've indicated, environmental scanning may include your SWOT analysis, your POTAS 5 force model, your pestle analysis. All these are your business industrial analysis tools. Now, as we go on, we will talk deeper or in details about your POTAS 5 force model, your pestle analysis. Now, for now, we are on the strategic management process, which must be known by you. Of course, I know that you know the strategic management process. Then we formulate an alternative strategy. Remember, we are a business, like I have indicated, that has recently declined in sales. We are experiencing a challenge. Now, we need to do what now? We need to formulate an alternative strategy to respond to the challenge that we have identified when we're doing what? Our environmental analysis. Then, for now, we're not going to talk about the types of business strategies. I know you know them, but then as we go on, we will talk about those business. I'm just introducing to you. Then you develop an action plan that includes the task to be done. Then you implement the selected strategy. Remember, you don't just choose any strategy. The strategy is informed by the challenge that you have identified. Then you implement the selected strategy. How? By communicating it to all the stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders in the business? It could be the shareholders, it could be the board of directors. Now, it could be the employees as well. To then you tell them, now, this is how we are going to do things, so that they are part of the strategy that you have chosen. Of course, you can't just have a strategy. You need to evaluate the strategy. Why? In order to take corrective actions. Now, as we go on, we'll talk about the steps to follow when evaluating a strategy. So, candidate, this is your strategic management process, which you must know. Now, let's ask ourselves a question to say, if I'm studying strategic management process, how am I going to be asked a question? Now, this is how a question may come. You may get a question that says, describe strategic management process for 6 marks. Now, it's your choice. Either you go for option 1 or you go for option 2. I think it is clear to you, candidates. Please make a point that you know your strategic management process. Then we get to Porter's 5 as what? As one of the business industrial analysis tools. Remember the example that I made about the Simpure manufacturers. It's a business that operates in the environment. Now, Porter's 5, it's about business conducting a research to know who are their buyers, who are their competitors, and then what is the power of their competitors, and then who are their suppliers, and then what is the power of their suppliers, what is the threat of new entrants into the market, and then what is the impact of the threat of substitute in their operation. So hence business will then do Porter's 5 just to assess their position in the market. However, when it comes to Porter's 5, candidates, I want to warn you, it is important that you know, with Porter's 5, we talk about how business apply Porter's 5 to analyze their position in the market. That's what you need to know about Porter's 5. Right, now, let's look at the 5 forces. Then, the first one is power of suppliers. Then you've got power of buyers. Then you've got power of competitors, which is also known as competitive rival. Now, it is important, candidates, that when you are asked a question on Porter's 5 force model, you write power of suppliers. It's important to put that word, power of. Because if you write suppliers only, you're going to be marked wrong. Because now it is no longer a Porter's 5, then it changes its status and then become what? A component of market environment, which was done in grade 10. In grade 12, we are not asking about the components. We are asking you about the Porter's 5 forces model. So the weight power of it's important. Then you write power of buyers, power of competitors. Please do not write competitors. Should you write competitors, then you're going to be marked wrong. Now remember our learning objectives about Porter's 5. Remember I said you must be able to name, you must be able to identify these 5 forces from a given scenario statement. You must be able to explain if you are given. Just hang on there. As we go on, you will see how questions may be asked on Porter's 5 forces model. Now, we've got 3. Where's the other 2? Let's look for the other 2. Then you have your threat of substitution, or you can say threat of substitute. So, candidates, it's important that you write threat of substitution. Don't put this slash. You choose, either you write substitute or you write substitution. Either you write power of competitors or you write competitive rival. Then you make a choice. Remember, this is to say, if not substitution, substitute. Then let's take the last one. Threat of new entrants to the market. It's important, candidates, that you write the model the way it is. Please don't write threat of new entrants. Well, it should be to the market. Write it the way it is. I hope we are together on one. Right. Now, what about Porter's 5? Like I have indicated, business, they must research then on how they can apply the Porter's 5 forces model. Now, let's look at the power of suppliers. Who has a power here? The suppliers are the one that are having power. Now, here we're looking at what? How business can apply. We are not looking for recommendation for suppliers. We are not looking for strategies to deal with suppliers as a business. We are looking at how business can apply. The application as it is in your notes, as it is in your examination guidelines. Now, let's look at how business apply the power of suppliers. Suppliers that deliver high quality products. You see, with this supplier, what makes this supplier to have power? This supplier deliver high quality product, may have power over the businesses, because here the supplier deliver high quality product as compared to other suppliers. Therefore, the second bullet says, the more powerful the supplier, the less control the business has over them. Now, it poses a challenge to a business. It poses a challenge. You will see as we go on, we will bring the relationship between the other content and the Porter's 5. But what is important, candidates, is for you, when you respond to this type of a question, you simply write suppliers, because you are discussing what? The power of suppliers. You see, suppliers are there in your explanation. You simply say suppliers that deliver high quality product may have power over the business. Then that's your power of suppliers. Right. Then the last one, you can say the smaller the number of suppliers, the more powerful they may be, as choice of suppliers may be limited. We are businesses, there are just limited suppliers in the market, and we are all in demand of their products. So they have power. They can then dictate terms to us. Right. Then let's get to power of buyers. Now here, the power is with the buyers. Candidate, I'm repeating again to say the word power is important. Please do not write buyers. As soon as you write buyers, then it's something else. It's no longer Porter's 5. Then you are going to be marked wrong. But then, I know you're not going to do that. You have not done it. Now, let us look at how business can apply the power of buyers. Now, we're saying buyers buying in bulk can bargain for prices in their favor. Think about yourself. If you are owning a business, like the business that I've made mention of, Simpure Manufacturers. Now, Simpure Manufacturers goes to a particular supplier to go and buy raw material in bulk. So the business has power to influence the price, to bargain for better prices in their favor, to say, supplier X and Y, if I buy all your items, if you reduce them by this percentage, I can buy more than that. So who has the power here is the buyer. Right. Furthermore, you can say if buyers can do without business products, they have more power. So buyers, they don't need your product. They have more power to determine the price. So it's like they're doing you a favor when they buy from you. So they can say, no, but then we can still go on. Life can still go on without your products. Then they have power to determine the price. Then only if you reduce the price, then they also dictate the terms of sale. They are telling you because they are holding a power. Then let's get to power of competitors. Maybe before we go to that, candidates, I want to show you. Do you see that the word power has been used 3 times? You have power of suppliers, you have power of buyers, you have power of competitors. I was just sharing that with you. Now, we are looking at the competitors. Remember, this is the research that we have done as a business to say, how powerful are the competitors in this market? And who are our competitors? Because we also need to know our competitors. Right, let's go back. Right, we're going to our Potters 5. Good. This is where we are. Thank you. Right, we're looking at the power of competitors. Now we're saying how business can apply Potters 5 in order to analyze their position in the market in terms of power of competitors. Now we're saying if competitors have unique product, like the example that I've made mention of the manufacturing company that is providing designer bags, is the only supplier that is selling those unique bags, they will have a greater power. Now, what makes the competitor to have power is their unique product that the competitor is selling. Now, you can also say a business with many competitors in the same market has very little power in their market. But what I like is if competitors have unique products, they will have a greater power. What gives them power is the unique product that they are selling, that it is not sold by any other competitor. Now, let's look at the threat of substitute. Remember our business. Our business is a manufacturing company that is manufacturing bags. Now, what is the threat of substitution in our operations? Now, it says here, if the business sells unique products. Now, if we are a business that is manufacturing unique ladies' bags that are not sold by any other business, that we are not going to be threatened by any substitute products. People can come up with their bags, but ours are unique. We are therefore not threatened by any substitution. We are not threatened by any substitute products. Now, let's look at this one. So you see now the word unique has been used twice here. You have unique in power of competitors. You have unique in the threat of substitute. So you can use those keywords to remind yourself about the application of the Potters 5 forces model when business analyze their position in the market. Then we have threat of new entrants to the market. Candidates, I'm repeating again. It is important that when you write this Potters 5 forces model, you write this model the way they are given in your notes. Please write threat of new entrants to the market. That is important. You can't just write it incomplete, otherwise you're going to lose marks. Then, how business apply the threat of new entrants to the market? We say, if business is highly profitable, it will attract the potential competitors that would want to benefit from high profits. Every business wants to make profit. So it's likely that business may start selling the very same product that you are selling, but at a lower price, because those are your what? Those are your competitors. Hence, it says it will attract potential competitors because the market is highly profitable. Right. Now, that was your Potter's 5. Now let's look at how questions may be asked in and around your Potter's 5 forces model. Now there are different ways, candidates, in which examiners may ask questions. So it's important that when you study in such a way that when a question it is asked, either they want you to identify, either they want you to explain, they want you to discuss, they want you to name, you are able to answer all the questions. Now, let's take a look at these types of questions that may be asked. Right, let's take a look at 2.3. Now, in 2.3, you may be required to identify the forces of Potter's 5 force model that applies to Louisa Hair Salon in each statement below. Now, where is this identify coming from, if I may ask? Think about the learning objectives. That identify, it comes from the learning objectives. And then where are those learning objectives taken from? They are taken from the page 9 of your examination guideline. Now, it's important, candidates, that when you get this type of a question, you read the statement with understanding. Please don't run over a statement. It's important that you read the statement critically. Take your time. You have enough time in an exam room. Now, let's read together. Lwazi opened a new hair salon across the street, offering services at a lower price than Louisa Hair Salon. Now, we've got two guys here. We have Lwazi, who has just opened a new hair salon across the street. Now, he's offering the service at a lower price than Louisa Hair Salon. Now, if I may ask you, what would be the Potter's 5 force represented by this statement? That will be power of competitors. Because now, Lwazi is the competitor to Louisa Hair Salon. Then, let's get to 3.2. Now, let's read 3.2 with understanding. Louisa Hair Salon is highly profitable and attracts many new entrepreneurs to enter this market. Obviously, the answer is given in the statement. Think about the notes, or should we go back? Okay, let's go back. I just want to show you something. Right, we're going back. Right. Now, before you give me the answer, let's read threat of new entrants to the market. The first bullet says, if the business is highly profitable, it will attract potential competitors who want to benefit from the high profits. Right. Now, let's take the last bullet that says, new competitors can easily enter, the word enter, the market if it takes little time, money to enter the new market. Right now, let's go back then to our question. Where's our question? The 3.3.2. It says, Louisa Hair Salon is highly profitable. Where did you see that highly profitable? When I was explaining the threats of new entrants to the market. Obviously, the answer is given, new entrepreneurs. Who are the new entrants? Where? To this market. The answer is given. So it's important, candidate. I'm just demonstrating to you to say, when you are in an exam room, please read your questions with understanding. Take time, read your questions with understanding. Now, it was just one way in which question may be asked in and around your Potter's 5 forces model. Now, let's look at 3.1. Now, how is the question asked in 3.1? 3.1 requires you to explain now. Here you are going to explain. Remember, you are identifying. Now we take it to another level Now you explain how business could apply Potter's 5 forces to analyze their position in their market. What is our position here? Now here, with this type of a question, you are not given the force. It is for you to tell us how. Then you will write power of buyers and tell us how business can apply, because the whole thing is about the how part. Here we are not asking for strategies. Here we are not asking for explanation. We are asking for the how part. So you give the force, then you explain how business can apply power of buyers, power of competitors, power of suppliers, and so forth. Whereas, let's look at 3.2. Just have a look at 3.2, candidates. 3.2, it requires you to discuss now. What are you discussing now? In 3.2, you are discussing how business could apply the following 5 forces model to analyze their position in the market. Now, here you are given, you are directed here. So this one, it is a little bit difficult. However, it is not difficult for you, I know. I know it's not difficult for you, but then this is just to show you how questions may be asked. To say, when you prepare yourselves, especially in and around your Potter's 5 forces model, to say, I'm expecting a question to say, identify. If not identify, explain how business can apply, or rather, I may be given the force wherein I have to explain. So don't expect a question to come in a particular way. Just to remind you, we are still waiting for your questions. You can use our WhatsApp line 0647488913. I'm with Mem Zwane. She will answer to your WhatsApp questions. Right. I've just shown you a way in which question may be asked. So I'm giving you different ways in which questions may be asked. Like I have indicated to say, we can use a source-based question, that is your scenario, an indirect question, whereby you read the scenario. Upon reading the scenario, then you answer the question that follows. Now let's look at 1.1.1. wherein it says, identify 4 Potter's 5 forces model that applied by KE. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. So it's important that as you motivate your answer, you quote directly from the scenario. You don't take motivation anywhere. You just go back to your scenario. In essence, these are just free marks. But then, candidates, let's read the scenario together. Now, as I'm reading the scenario with you, please identify those Potter's 5 forces model and give them to me. I'm watching you. Right. Current events, that's the name of the business. Current events has many customers due to the excellent service and stylish decor. It was easy for Karen to start her business as she only needed a trading license. Now, from this statement, you do what now? You identify. You identify your Potter's 5 force. Now, it's important that you know all the explanation, ways in which business do apply those forces. That is 1. 2. Current events buys all her products from Thuli Ltd. Then Thuli, in this case, she is the supplier. Who is the only, I like the word only, who is the only provider for wedding decoration? Now, in this case, who has the power? Is it the buyer or the supplier? So you tell me. Now it becomes what? The power of the supplier, because Thuli is the only provider of the wedding decoration. Karen has no choice but to buy from Thuli. So this is just to show you candidates how questions may be asked. So it's important that when you study, you go back to your examination guideline where it says learners must be able to. And then you make a point that when you sit for examination, you are able to respond to any form of question that may be asked. Okay, let's take it further. Semi-party planner who operates in the same area. Now, there is current business, there is same. They are operating in the same area. Then, candidate, it must tell you something. Offer similar service at affordable price. What is it saying to you now? Now here, the product is similar, but then at what? At the affordable price. Then this is how questions may be asked. So I need to advise you when it comes to use the table below as a guide to answer question 1.1.1. So it's important that candidates, when you draw this table, draw it in such a way that it is big enough to can accommodate your responses. Some of you I've seen last year, they just draw a little table, then they want to change the motivation now so that it can fit in that little table. No, you have a choice not to draw it because it says as a guide. The instruction does not say redraw, but then it says use, just to guide you if you want to. But then if you don't want to, you have a choice not to draw the table. I hope it is clear to you. It should be clear. You can ask your question using our WhatsApp line. Right. Now I have shown you how questions may be asked, different types of questions. Let us go on. Now, the very same Potter's 5 force model may be asked in an essay question. Then if it is asked in an essay question, then these are typical examples of action verbs that may be used in your question 5 or question 6. This does not necessarily say these are the only action verbs that can be used for Potter's 5 forces model. Then you may be required to elaborate. You elaborate on the meaning. You may be required to outline. You may be required to differentiate on the content that requires differentiation, like the differences between product development and market development. You may be required to explain. We have done explain. You may be required to discuss. You may be required to evaluate, suggest, and recommend. Now, let's have a look at a typical example of an essay question. Now, never mind this other part of the essay question. Our focus is on Potter's 5. Now, in your question 5, in your question 6, you normally get a preamble. Candidates, please read the preamble with understanding and do not repeat the preamble in your introduction, or rather in your conclusion. Please do not steal from the preamble. This is not a scenario, it's a preamble. In section C, we have a preamble. In section B, we have a scenario. Hence, you are guided in section C, whereby they say motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Here, in this typical example of an essay question, there is no way it says motivate your answer by quoting from the preamble. No. So it's important that you do not steal from the preamble. Don't repeat facts from the preamble. So I'm just showing you. So in this case, we have what? We are given the Potter's 5 forces. So this is how, just to show you, this has been taken from the 2021 examination paper, which was written by the other candidates. So I have shown you different ways in which question may be asked on Potter's 5. So definitely when you get your Potter's 5 in this coming examination on the 28th, you are going to make it. Then now we get into another business industrial analysis tool, that is Pestle factors. Now, business, they use the business industrial analysis tool to analyze the three business environment, like I have indicated. So it's important that you know that the Porter's five forces is used to analyze the market environment. And then for our Pestle analysis, we'll analyze which business environment, if I may ask, will analyze our macro business environment, which is a very complicated environment. Now, as a business, we need to understand and know the environment in which we are operating it. A macro business environment is a vast environment which is very dynamic, which is forever changing. Now, so first and foremost, we go back to the learning objectives. What were our learning objectives saying? We're saying we must be able to name the Pestle factors. Then let's see. Then we have P, which stands for political. Remember, the macro environment has politics. There could be labor unrest, there could be service delivery protest, which affect our business. So let's go on. Then we have E, which stands for what? For economic factors. Then we have S, which stands for social environment. Then we have T, which stands for technological. Then we have L, which stands for legal. Then we are left with the last E, which stands for environmental. So it's important that you understand all your Pestle factors in doing what? In analyzing which business environment, by the way, your macro business environment. Like I've indicated, it's a very dynamic environment. It's an environment that changes. I mean, taking the economic factor, you will understand what is happening in economic, which is why I'm saying it's a very changing environment. What are the changes in technologies? There are new gadgets that are being introduced. Technology has great influence in the world. Right. Now, here, what is that you need to know? You need to know how the Pestle analysis pose a challenge to a business. And then you must be able to recommend based on the challenge posed by your politically, your economic environment, your technological environment, your legal environment, and so forth. So, candidate, it's important not only to know how to mention those Pestle components, be able to tell how do they pose a challenge. I will show you how do they pose a challenge. Now, we're looking at, okay, let me do this. There we are. Now, we're looking at, let's take the first one, the political. Now, how the political factor pose a challenge to our business. Now, here we're looking at what, let me just clean the screen for you. Thank you. There we are. Right, we're looking at the challenge posed by political factor. How does it pose a challenge? Here we're looking at trade agreements may prevent business from importing some products. Now, what is the challenge here is your trade agreements. What is that they are doing? They are, just hang on. Hang on, there we go. There we go. Just want to take you back to that slide. Where's my slide now? It's gone. But then I will find it, don't stress. Hold on. Thank you. This is the slide that I'm looking for. This is a slide that I'm looking for. Now we're just looking at the political factor. How does it pose a challenge? We're saying trade agreements may prevent business from importing some product. What is the problem here? What poses a challenge are the trade agreements. What is that they're doing? They are preventing business from importing some products. Then what is the recommendation? The recommendation, trade only with countries that have favorable trade agreements with government. So here, candidates, I'm going to take this one very slow because more often than not, most of you are making mistakes. Now, the challenge here is on trade agreement. Therefore, the recommendation should also be on trade agreements. Let's read the recommendation together because we have seen trade agreements to be posing a challenge. Now, let's read the recommendation together. Then the recommendation says, trade only with countries that have favorable trade agreements with the government. Then let's take economical factor. Now, we're looking at the economic condition of our country as a business. Now, here we find that loans may be expensive due to high interest rate. Now, where is the challenge? Well, what poses challenge here is high interest rate. Don't say interest rate. The word high is important because we are explaining the nature of the interest rates. The interest rates are very high, which makes the loan to be expensive. Now, what is the recommendation? If I may ask, your recommendation should be based on what? Your recommendation should be based on interest rates. Now, let us take the recommendation together. It therefore says, borrow money from financial institution when interest rates are favorable, because the interest rates, they have posed a challenge. The interest rates, they have posed a challenge. How? By making loans to be expensive. Now, our recommendation, it is therefore based on the interest rate, which is why we are then saying borrow money from the financial institution when the interest rates are favorable. You can see from this picture, there are the interest rates growing up. So you need to wait for the interest rates to be favorable, then you can borrow money. Now, let's take the social factor. Now, what about the social factor? Please, candidate, do not confuse the economic factor with the social factor. Please do not do that. It's important that you read with understanding. And then, equally so, do not confuse these factors with the components, those that were done in grade 10. Please read what is in your notes for grade 12 and respond accordingly. Right, now let's look at the social factor. What is it saying? Customers may not be able to afford products. What makes them not to afford product is that due to lower income or high unemployment. Then it's a problem to the business because you want to make profit. Now, what is that you must do? The recommendation now. Because the problem is that they may not be able to afford products. What makes them not to be able to afford the product is due to low income levels or high unemployment. Therefore, now let's look at the affordability of the products in terms of our recommendation. Hence we are saying sell substitute or generic products at a lower price. Remember, where are we coming from with this substitute? We are coming with the substitute products from Porter's 5. You see, now as a business, you may be threatened by the substitute products. But then the bottom line here is to say, as you mentioned the factor, know the challenges, and then your recommendation must be strictly based on the challenge identified. Now, let's take other factors. Then you have your technology. You can see on the other side, it says technology changes the future. Now let's look at the technology candidates to see how does it pose a challenge to a business. Remember, like I indicated, this is a very complicated environment which is forever changing in as much as you know that the technology is changing. So when you operate in this environment as a business, you must be able to adapt to the changes in that environment. Now, let's look at technological. Says employees may not be skilled to do what? To operate new technology. Because now our challenge is based on the technology. Right now I'm using technology. I may not be skilled to use this technology, which is a challenge. Therefore, what is the recommendation? I need to be trained on the use of this equipment because it has changed. So these are just the latest technology. So it's important, I will keep on repeating until you understand this, that your recommendation should be based on the challenge. Now let's take legal. Now what about legal factors, candidates? Then how do legal factors pose a challenge? Legal requirements for operating certain types of business may be time consuming. You know, there are businesses that do not open Saturday and Sunday. There are businesses that must close at a particular time as per the requirements of their trading license. Right now, that is the challenge, which is time consuming. Therefore, what is the recommendation to that challenge, the legal requirement? Now, our recommendation should be based on legal requirement. It is therefore where we say comply with the legal requirements for operating the business. Now here we've got examples, e.g. license. However, when I'm showing you this example, I am not saying give the example. The question did not ask for examples. So it's important that you don't give examples. But then I will show you how questions are asked in and around your personal factors. Then let's take environmental. Now with your environmental, how does the environmental pose a challenge to the business? It says packaging of some products may not be environmental friendly, may pollute the environment, which now becomes a challenge, and then they may not be recyclable. Then it becomes a challenge to the business. Therefore, what is the recommendation, folks? Then you need to then say implement recycling measures to prevent polluting of the environment. If not that one, you can say use packaging that are reusable so that the environment is not polluted. I should think by now you should know all the personal factors, their challenge, and their recommendation. Now that we have done this, now let's go to questions. How questions may be asked in your exam papers. Let's just go on. Right, fine. Now, let's look at the assessment now. Then you have a scenario. Now, it's important that you go back to your learning objectives to say, what is that asset you need to know about your personal analysis? Now we read the scenario together, read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. It's important, candidates, that you read the scenario with understanding. I will keep on repeating. Now, what is the name of our business? Martha and Jane Furniture, abbreviated as MJF. Martha and Jane Furniture specialize in the selling of office furniture. This is just a statement. It has got nothing to do with the personal factors. But then let's read. Let's just go on and read. The profit of the business has decreased due to higher inflation rate. Now, start to think. As I was doing those personal factors, where did I talk about inflation rate? and then it says and low income levels of customers. Think again. As I was doing those personal factors, where did I talk about low income of customers? MJF had to pay heavy fine because they did not renew their operating license in time. Now ask yourself, as I was doing the personal factors, where did I talk about trading license? This is just to show you how questions may be asked. So it's important that when you study, you always have the objectives in mind. What are those objectives? Are what the learner must be able to do after having studied a particular content. And where would you get that information? In your examination guideline. B for paper 1, B for paper 2. Always have the examination guideline with you, especially where it talks to you as a learner, where it says learners must be able to. It tells you what is that you should be able to do. You must be able to identify from a given scenario. You must be able to outline. You must be able to tell how the personal factors pose a challenge and recommend. Who must recommend? It is you. Recommending using the notes. I'm repeating again. Your recommendation must be based on what? It must be based on the challenged. Right, fine. We have just gone through our scenario. Then let's read the instruction. It says code. You see here, we don't identify, we code. Now I'm introducing you to another action verb. Code 3 challenges. Code 3 challenges for MJF. From where? From the scenario above. Candidates, when you code from the scenario. So your quotation must come directly from the scenario. In other words, you just copy from the scenario and get marks. You see how simple it is to pass business studies. It is important that when you read, you take your time, you do things with understanding. Right, then let's look at 1.1.2. Now, 1.1.2, what does it require us to do? It requires you to identify the personal factors that link to each challenge. So you have the personal factor linked to the challenge. Of course, you know that you must make a recommendation. Why not? Depending on the question, please, candidates, read your question. Right, then you link and then as quoted in 1.1.1. So it's important that you know all your personal factors, because we do not know which one will be asked in an examination. But then for you to be safe, know all of them. Then upon identify, recommend. You see how questions are asked. You identify, you tell how it poses a challenge, you recommend. So it's important that you do that. Recommend one way in which MJF can deal with each challenge as identified. So your recommendation, by the way, what did I say about the recommendation? The recommendation must link to the challenge. You recommend based on the challenge. Right, then again, I'm repeating. I will always repeat until you understand. Use the table below as a guide to answer your question. Please, candidate, I'm asking again. Please make a point that as you draw this table, draw a big table. You rather leave space rather than changing your answer, trying to fit them in a table wherein you end up leaving some words that make your answer to lose its meaning. So it's important that you draw a big table. Right, this is how I was just showing you. Let's take it further. Now, let's look at how an essay may be asked using the personal factors. Now, this is an example of an essay which has been adapted from the Senior Certificate Examination, the 2018 question paper. You can just use that question paper just to check on this example of an essay. Right, remember, what are we doing, by the way? We are on business strategies. Everything, it was centered around strategic management process. While we are looking at the essay, shall we take a 5 minutes break? Then when we come from the break, we will look at the essay again. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. You're a wonderful audience. Keep up the good work.